I want to introduce somebody now that the most important thing I can say about Senator Brent Jackson is he is a farmer. It is a pleasure to have somebody in the Senate that is an actual farmer, has that hands-on experience and understands it, and I don't have to tell him, explain things to him when I go to him or when Peter goes to him or John goes to him, because he already knows, and he knows the answer that we go to him for. He's president and CEO of Jackson Farming Company in Autryville. And Autryville, if you've never been there, is a place you can't get to. There's no way to get there, but that's where he's from. He's been in agriculture over 30 years, and in 1992, the JCs recognized him as the outstanding farmer in North Carolina. He produces watermelons, cantaloupes, honeydew, strawberries, pumpkin squash, and slicer cucumbers. The business also includes two country, I don't know what that is.
Elevators.
Grain elevators and a liquid fertilizer plant. And this is the most important part for me. In the legislature, he co-chairs the Agricultural Environment and Natural Resources Committee, happens to be the committee I'm under, and the Appropriations Subcommittee on Natural and Economic Resources. In other words, he's the man that's got control of my budget. He's also vice chair of the Rules Committee, and he's been active in a lot of national and state agricultural organizations, and his involvement in the civic organizations and the church all of his life. And I just want to say the groups that he's been involved with is the National Watermelon Association, the National Watermelon Promotion Board, Sampson County Farm Bureau, and the Sampson County Community Board of Trustees. And he brings a unique perspective as being a farmer and the person that's helped craft the policy for agriculture in North Carolina. So Brent, what's that experience been like?
Interesting. I'm going to do this a little different too. Thanks, Gary, for changing this up a little bit. I prefer not sitting on my brain and so I can talk to you better. So, I am a farmer. And I guess I am the only farmer in the North Carolina State Senate. There's 3 or 4 maybe in the House. But I'm the only one in the North Carolina State Senate that derives 100% of my income from the farm. I'm very passionate about farming, so if I get emotional, look that over. But I'm very passionate about agriculture. How many of you know what our state's #1 industry is?
Agriculture.
Agriculture and agribusiness at $75 billion. Our #2 is what? Military. At around 24, 25, 26, depends on how you look at it. #3 is tourism. You add 2 and 3 together, and they don't even come close to the #1. The main reason I ran for the North Carolina State Senate was to help this gentleman, in turn help me, and to help the gentleman sitting back there, your dean, Johnny Wynn, because it's a cooperative effort. The policy does affect us, but ag in North Carolina has sort of taken a back seat over the last 10 or 15 years to where I had seen it get to the point I didn't like what I was seeing. I mean, the commissioner's not exaggerating. He didn't have the money for the fuel for Gary's trucks. And he lightly touched on it, but it's rural versus urban. I tell folks, the folks in the urban areas are not devils or mean or nothing like that. But folks that live in Raleigh or live in Chapel Hill or Charlotte or Gastonia, they have different needs than someone that stays in Autryville, North Carolina, that only God can get to. So it's very simple. It's located approximately halfway between Clinton and Fayetteville. So now some of you can find it. And then when I tell folks that from home, they say, Fayetteville? I says, Fort Bragg. Everybody knows where Fort Bragg is. So, but that is the reason I ran for the North Carolina State Senate, one of the reasons. And the other reason was because of the issues we're going to face and have faced and will continue to face with our water issues in this state. We irrigate around 1,500 acres. Out of that, there is over 1,000 of it on black plastic and drip irrigation. That takes a lot of water, folks. But there's no more efficient way to do it than with drip irrigation. But it still takes a lot of water. And by the time, and we mostly use surface ponds, we do use some wells, we have no rivers in our area. But by the time we get to the water usage, if we're not careful, it's all going to be used up before it ever gets to the farm. And so those are things we need to protect in rural North Carolina, is our water issues. And the Farm Bill with the conservation part of it plays a part in that. The nutrition part, Gary will know that I've been very active in the Farm to School program, and let me pat him and the commissioner on the back. The Farm to School program in North Carolina has been copied in many other states. It was a pilot program here for years. And it's a great program. It puts the farmers such as us, whether you're small, medium, or large, it puts us in touch with the school system directly. And the Farm Bill in 2007, which was what it was called, but didn't get past to 2008, actually for the first time allowed you to buy fresh fruits and vegetables with the food stamps. Couldn't do it before. You could buy most any other thing, you know, that was edible, but you couldn't buy fresh fruits and vegetables with food stamps. But you can now, and we certainly want to keep that in there, because that has been a huge success in our business. We're very diversified. Over the years, my oldest son has come in and joined us, and we now do cotton, soybeans, wheat, peanuts. We also do tobacco. We added tobacco after the program was done away with. We use H-2A labor on our farm, which is another key issue that we haven't even discussed. And it is so expensive, we had to figure out a way to utilize those workers. We use a lot of manual labor. And tobacco fit between our spring produce crops and our fall produce crops. Perfect fit. And so we were able to utilize and be more efficient. It's all about being efficient, folks, in today's world. Whether you're working on 50 acres or 5,000, you've got to be efficient at what you do. But you know, on the labor situation, we have a serious choice in this country. You know, we can import our labor or we can import our food. That's the choices. And I prefer to import the labor and let us control our food production. I'm going to tell you a few things I do in the North Carolina State Senate. I was fortunate enough to be named originally as vice chairman of the Ag Committee, and then I was moved up to co-chair. And as the commissioner said, that basically on the Agriculture Committee we cover a lot of things. And we cover on the NER Committee, it's sort of like, you know, I'm sure some of you as parents control your purse strings. So, you know, when whoever controls the money sort of rules. And fortunate for the commissioner, he's got an ag person that loves agriculture that is controlling his budget. And unfortunate for some of the regulatory people that we control as well, and I won't go into that, but I do want to say something about the regulatory agent. We're not against regulations, but there's a reason, there should be a rhyme to the reason. And in the last 10 years, there was over 15,000 rules and regulations enacted in this state that had nothing to do with the General Assembly. They had nothing to do with it. It was done by the agencies themselves. The best thing I think we done this past session was a Regulatory Reform Act, Senate Bill 781, I believe is correct, and it makes those agencies take a second look, step back, and look at what kind of rule they're fixing to put in place on the working people in this state, on those that are creating the jobs, those that are farming, those that are doing whatever, building tires, whatever it happens to be. It makes them look at that new rule that they're proposing to see what it's going to cost that employer or homeowner or whatever to put in place. And if it meets a certain criteria, it can't be done because it is stifling to our economy. But I do serve on the NER Committee, and to give you a little bit about that, that is the Department of Ag, which now includes the Forestry and Soil and Water, which I thought was two good things we done. We moved them from one department to where I believe they need to be and should have been all along. We also cover DENR, which is the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources. And this, you know, is not only the regulatory side of DENR, but such as water quality, land quality, CAMA, which is the coastal deal down at the beach. But it also, DENR also encompasses the parks and state attractions such as the zoos, the aquariums, But you know, one of the main goals of the North Carolina Senate, as I said, has been to reduce regulations to the point we could live with them and allow businesses to flourish and grow. You know, the atmosphere had been in our state, and it's sad to say, for many years, many businesses would not move here because of the regulations that we had. And the businesses that were here, and I heard this out of my own mouth last February from a company down in Wilmington, because of the rules and regulations, they were going to expand from 250 employees to like 350, which we desperately need the jobs in this state, but because of the rules and regulations and the aggravation, just the aggravation of it, they chose to stay the same. But then, you know, but we don't need that kind of atmosphere. So with Senate Bill 781, we are now at one of the top business-friendly states there is in this nation, which I think is a tremendous asset. Also, the Department of Labor is controlled under our budget. The Department of Commerce, which might not mean a whole lot to some of you, but it controls now the Employment Security Commission. It controls, you've heard of the JMAC funds possibly, where incentives are given to businesses to come to the state. That is controlled in the Commerce Department, along with the Wildlife Commission is part of it. You know, and these are just a few that are controlled in the NER appropriations budget. A lot of people. We have right out a $19.7, $19.8 billion budget in this state. But here's the sad part. Out of all I've just told you, it's $411 million. So keep that in mind. Out of what I've just told you, of all that our committees encompass, we've got less than $500 million we're doling out. 50-some% goes to the education, 30-some% go to the Medicaid, and you know, so that leaves very little to work with. But that is the sad part. So it has been in my mind and my goal to make sure agriculture in North Carolina gets the most bang for the buck when it comes to the General Assembly. And that is where I'm at. I thank you for the time that you've allowed me to come here, and I'll certainly be glad to get into it. And you know, for me to be the first politician that you've heard on this thing, I'm the shortest, if you'll notice.
Brent, thank you. I just want to mention a couple of issues. Brent mentioned water and agriculture. And if you were to go to the general population in the state of North Carolina and ask them who uses the most water in the state of North Carolina, they're going to tell you it's agriculture. But you know what the truth is? We use 1% of the daily withdrawals of water in the state of North Carolina. So who uses the water? The people that live in North Carolina, that flush the toilets, that wash the clothes, that wash their cars, that water their lawns. That's where the water usage is. We had to prove that because there was a bill that was going to be in the legislature that said the state of North Carolina owns all water and holds it in trust for its citizens, which means that that water supply that he has on his farm to water these fresh fruits and vegetables, the state was going to tell him how much he could use. The state was going to tell the pork producers and the poultry producers how much water they could have to feed, to water these animals that we produce in North Carolina. So I think it woke up a lot of people in agriculture, and everybody said, now wait a minute here, we got to look at this and we've got to study it and we've got to prove this. And we did, but that issue is as we grow as a state, and we bring more people into the state of North Carolina, water is going to continue to be an issue, especially when we have a drought situation like we've had in several of the last few years. And I do want to say that this year was kind of a landmark year for agriculture in the legislature. And one thing that sticks out in my mind that I think will make more difference in the agricultural world than anything else, and we all worked on this together, cities can no longer annex a bona fide farm. That is, I mean, this is something that we got 10 years from now, we're going to look back and say, wow, what if we hadn't done this? Where would we be? But that happened this legislative session. I think it gives new life to rural North Carolina and to farming.